Yeah. Today we are here with almost doctor, I would say, Luiz Martins de Lima Neto. He's a PhD student of before I introduce you, how should what would be your pronouns in English? Because I actually don't know that. We haven't talked about that.
Yes. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here, Michelle. Thanks for the invitation. And well, it's been a question now. It has never been a question for me, in fact.
Mm-hmm.
And well, I would say that because of all the indexical past callings and referrings
Mm-hmm.
in our interactions, I would say that you could still continue calling me using masculine pronouns. It's not a problem for me. And I do not see myself as a woman as either.
Okay.
So, but yes, in English, and in Portuguese, you know that we are having discussions about neutral pronouns and everything. Mm-hmm. And even if I'm totally in favor of neutral pronouns, even if I don't like this name neutral, this adjective specifically, but well, all these just to say that I'm in favor of them, but it would be kind of strange to be called ilu or anything like this.
Yeah.
Yet, but and in English it would be. I think it's more. Yes, they there. Yes, it sounds less problematic or new for me. So because as it is in another language, so.
Yeah.
But all of these should say that you can continue calling me and using masculine pronouns. But if you want to use they and their, it's not a problem at all. I even like it.
I want to try to using they there. But I will I can say I'm sorry beforehand if I say he, his, or him, or he, because I'm very used to our interactions, treating you in the masculine. Although you treat me in the feminine in Portuguese all the time, and I love it. Yeah, but it's not my style in general. So yeah, maybe it will be more difficult to me. That's funny because I had students in just like a parenthesis. I had students in high school that would treat me in the feminine a lot, and I would for me that's not a problem, because for me that is not something that is not good, because for me being a woman is not a problem. So why I would be oh, don't tell me yeah. So so I was introducing you. You are a PhD student. Your program is in Letras y Linguística. That would be letters and linguistics. So you would put yourself in the field of linguistics or applied linguistics or teaching. How would you best describe yourself?
Being influenced by people, I would say that my area in Brazil is still applied linguistics, which gives me the freedom to walk through the linguistic studies, let's say, related to from these studies to studies related to education. But as I know that outside Brazil, things do not work exactly like this. So here in Belgium, I'm more social linguistics. And I had even to explain, for example, because I've been interviewed here also, as I've already told you, and I had to explain to people what applied linguistic is first, and why I'm calling it applied linguistics, because well, here I'm in the anthropological department, so they do not have knowledge about it. Yes, and if you do if you make a quick research, you are not going to obtain satisfactory, I would say, information about what applied linguistics is in Brazil, especially nowadays. So I had to explain it to them. But I would say that in Brazil, I'm from the linguistic studies or applied linguistics. And outside Brazil, I would say that more social linguistics or linguistic anthropology, because as I'm conducting an autoethnography. So.
And now, as you mentioned, now you're doing part of your PhD studies in Belgium, and you are for 6 months there, right? An academic semester. Okay. So how has been your experience there in general?
It's been good. It's been, I think, when I first arrived here, I got to know a person with whom I divide my office. And he said to me, I'm going to try to be brief because normally I'm not. But then he said that he had taken a course in Germany, outside Belgium. And he said to me that it didn't work to him because they worked very hard in Germany. And he said that in Belgium, things were more easier and or at least calmer. And then I wondered, but I would like to go to somewhere where people would push me forward. But just to say that, I think that thinking about this national culture, I would say that Belgium is, people work, but they do not work that hard. They really, and they are calm and, well,
so it's more...
I'm saying this to say that it was calm, but it was fruitful in a way. It was, I could take good experiences from that. I'll have good taste to talk and good experiences to share with people in Brazil when I come back. I think it was good.
So maybe it's the pace. I like the word pace, like the pace of working, because we are used to like a chaotic pace of work, I think, in general.
Yes.
Yeah.
We work
I would like
very
to
hard
have this experience. I would like to have this experience of like, maybe I would adapt better. Maybe I would say.
Yes.
So so your background is in linguistics. It is in applied linguistics. Also, you have a BA in English. So you are an English teacher, and also you have a BA in Portuguese, if I'm not wrong, right?
Yes.
So you have been teaching for more than 10 years or more? 10 years or more?
Almost. Yes.
Okay. Because I think in 2012 you were already teaching, I think, right? In Center of Languages. In you, just to mention, we were undergraduates at the same faculty, so we did had our friendship started with being undergrads together, colleagues at the same university. So you work with you at the moment you work as a tenure servant, social servant in Brazil at a school. So normally in your work you work with kids from what ages?
9 to 12 years old.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, thank you. So this discussion that we're going to have today, it's more about ethnography and your relation with ethnography and how your body comes into your experience in your methodology. Okay, so I think the first question is how you got into ethnography. Like what made you decide to go into this specific kind of work?
Through autoethnography, you mean, right?
It can be
Or
ethnography
to
in general.
ethnography?
It can be ethnography in general or autoethnography, if you want.
Yes. Well, if you consider ethnography, so it started back to my master's degree when because as you mentioned, I was an English teacher in the language center in which I worked. And then I gave a course and I analyzed especially the discourses that were produced and resisted during this course that I gave. And I called it in ethnography. I called it a critical ethnography because, well, I think even if we have this discussion about if what we do is really an ethnography or not, but I think nowadays, especially because I have more knowledge about ethnography in general, so I would say that it was really an ethnography because I spent the whole period of the course, even if it was a 6-month course, but I stayed all this period studying my students, and I observed. I was there. There was a culture there, and I analyzed this culture. And I had a diary in which I wrote my many field notes and diary entries, in fact. And so I think that we can really call it an ethnography. So, but I would say that it always started there then, ethnography. But autoethnography, which I'm considering a kind of ethnography, as you could see in the paper that I sent to you.
Yeah.
It started. My story with autoethnography started in a very informal way, because at the same time that I started. Sorry, there is someone calling me. I'm so sorry. But and then I got a little bit disturbed. But at the same time that I started working where I work today as a tenure teacher, as you said, in my city, I started intensifying. I started my doctorate. And in my doctorate, I started intensifying my readings about performativity and lexicality. And of course, that influenced by all this reading, when I entered at the school where I work now, things that happened and to which probably I wouldn't give too much importance in another, if I was not taking my doctorate, called my attention very much. And so as I was a completely new body in that space, I heard many things. And if you I don't know if you are seeing me through this recording. I think you are.
I am.
But if you aren't, because it is also a podcast,
yeah,
I'm very, at least this is what people say. People say to me that I have a very feminine gender performance, and that I have many feminine body signs, that I perform many very feminine body signs. And because of all this, and if you consider that I'm from Brazil and that I'm from the west center of Brazil, which is a very misogynist and sexist region of Brazil, you can already think that I heard some things, some of them very terrible, and I did. But as I was with all this theoretical background with me, all the things I heard called my attention and made me to have interest to know more about them. And so when I heard what I heard, for example, I was called bichinho, I was called viadinho by a student of mine, which we could translate as little faggot in a very pejorative way. When I was walking in front of him, and it was cold, and I was wearing how do we call it in English? I was wearing
like a scarf.
Yes, I was wearing a scarf, exactly. And then when I passed in front of him, so he called me. He said to his peers, "Oh, look at the little faggot." And then I came back and I talked to him. I am your teacher. I'm not what you said. And then I scolded him for what he has said. But then I've been called viadinho. My students asked me about questioned me about my namorada and not namorado, which is the Portuguese word for girlfriend. Yes. And they also one of the students asked me if I was the new gay teacher at school. So all these things, which in a way hurt me, they also made me very interested in understanding it a little bit more, because of all the readings I had already, I knew that these people were not reflecting me. They were not saying what I was with his words. They were constructing me. They were constructing my body and putting me in a social place. And then when I discovered that, and then I brought it to my supervisor, who was already your supervisor. And then he, in a very informal way, he said to me, so then I think that what you want to do is an autoethnography, right? And then I had never heard about it. And then I just replied, yes, I think that's what I want to do, because, and precisely from the name autoethnography, I kind of knew that it would be a research about myself, and that I would research me. And then at that moment I saw, yes, I think that's what I want to do. And that's how it went. That's how I came to autoethnography.
Okay, so do you think that your previous knowledge in ethnography helped your process of your not only your understanding of autoethnography, but the way that you constructed the methodology and developed your the study about yourself and your interactions and everything? Because if I asked that because if you were doing an autoethnography since the masters, if you were doing an autoethnography there, maybe it would be very different. Because I would say that the process of ethnography, trying to understand the other, it's very interesting first, or maybe as a first thing, and then to relate to yourself after. How would you put that?
Yes, I think it was important. And I do see, Michelle, I do see autoethnography as a kind of ethnography. So I think it's,
of course,
it's a specific area of ethnography. And then I think that we should start then, and this is what I want to, this is what I'm doing my thesis. For example, I have a part in which I talk about ethnography, and then a part in which I talk about autoethnography. So why autoethnography and not only ethnography? I have to give some reasons. And but I think, yes, I think that we have to start there. And but of course that we, well, as we are advanced, I think some aspects of ethnography. So I think, of course, that we do not need to come back only if we want to make some articulations, but we do not necessarily need to come back to Malinowski and commit the same stakes. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
So of course that we can already depart from the critical moment in which we are regarding ethnography, but I think that we should depart from there. yes. We need to have some reading about it, of course.
Yeah, so I do agree about that. And I think in my perspective, I think every ethnography that the person that is conducting, in some level, they should be doing an autoethnography at the same time. If they are not, something is wrong. Not that it's going to be there in their work as a session or anything, but if they are not understanding themselves better or trying to understand themselves in the process as well, not only their role, but like who they are and how they interact with the world as well, like the other, I would say, in a sense, then something is problematic. Yes. Which we can see a lot of ethnography in the past that they were not like, I don't want to think about myself in this. They just projected themselves. Actually, they projected themselves into what they were researching sometimes. A lot of times, actually. Not some, just some. Yeah. So you mentioned gender, right? So yeah, you are. Can I refer to you as a queer person in general, or do you don't like the term? Okay.
Yes, I do like it. Yes.
Because
sometimes this is how I'm seeing myself.
Okay.
Nowadays.
So that is interesting because like I am a gay man. Like I do think that this category fits me, but I do like the word queer because I don't want to be just like labeled as like some kind of masculinity and sexuality. So I like queerness. I like the fact that it can bring not diversity. It can bring agency to who you are in a sense. So if I like the way I want to dress, because I do like this of the queerness, because like it doesn't define you. It defines that you are different, but not how exactly the word. So that's what I like about queerness. The word queer. So you talked a little bit about gender, but how the racialization of your body get into your autoethnography, I would say, or the relation of your racialized body with your gendered body. How would you say that those things are in your identity construction or maybe in your autoethnography process as well?
Michelle, I would answer your question like this. I think I can make a critique about autoethnography works because normally people tend to choose one of the identity categories that constitute them, and they focus on this social and identity category. But I was reading, and if you don't know her, you should definitely start knowing her. Her name is Larissa Pelúcio. She's a professor, a sociology professor here in Brazil. I didn't know her as well. And she writes about teoria Q, or teoria queer, written in Portuguese with C-U-I-R. And why does she call her theory Q? Q in English is asshole. And why does she call it like this? Because first of all, because of the anatomic organ we all have, right? And because of the political way you can see this organ in a transgressive way. But also because she says that metaphorically, we from the South, if you take into consideration the North and the South Americas, we, South Americans, we are also the asshole of the world. So she says that because she wants to argue that what we produce is not consumed by the North, whereas the opposite happens all the time, and it's the only thing that happens. We only consume, and what we do is not consumed, is not. But even this term is not good, right? But just for you to have a brief notion of what I'm saying, and I'm saying this because this professor, she says that there's no, you can mislead yourself. There is this way, because I would say there's no way to talk about identity in the South America or in Brazil if you do not do an intersectional work. You cannot talk about gender without talking about race. There is no possibility. There's no way of talking about social class without talking about race in Brazil. And then, and what have I just said that you can mislead yourself? Because I was misleading myself. I thought for many times during the time I was generating data, I was trying to focus on something, on just one of the social categories, in identity categories. But until the moment that I saw that there was no possibility of talking only about gender and only about my gender performance, because it was intrinsically linked to my race. And in the paper I sent to you, I really had this insight when I was writing it, because I questioned myself many times if I was a trans person during my whole life, but during this process in which I was conducting autoethnography more, I think. And when I realized that I was socially being pushed to become a travesti because it had to do with my color. And when I discovered that I would never be a trans woman, that I would only be a travesti because of my color, when I felt that, I was definitely sure that there was no way of separating my race from my gender. And so I would, from this read that I did yesterday from this professor that I've mentioned, I would say that there's no way of talking about in Brazil, if you do a research in Brazil and it is about gender. It was not about gender since the beginning. I was just researching and seeing what I was going to focus afterwards. But because of all this, because of my body, because of the background I've just gave you about my region, the region where I'm from. So there was no way, this part was the strongest one, let's say, the gender thing and the sexuality as a consequence, or interdependently, let's say. But of course, that race was there. Yes. And so I couldn't escape from that.
Okay, that really answers my question. So why do you say that like people of color that are transgender can be seen as travesti, which is travesti in
yes, transvestite.
Transvestite, yeah.
It was introduced to me theoretically. I was watching Rita Von Hunt, and then
a Brazilian drag queen, that of course.
Yes. And who has she's not only this, because even if being a drag queen is something very nice, but she's what I mean is that she also has
she's theoretical knowledge,
because
she's a professor and educator, I would say.
Yes, and she was very pedagogically she was making a video about the letters in the LGBTQ A plus abbreviation. I forgot the word.
Acronym. Yeah, acronym.
Yes. And then she was pedagogically, as I was saying, explaining each of them. And then she came to the T part. And she said that now the most recent acronym, is that word?
Yeah. Yeah.
The most recent acronym. In this most recent acronym, we have 3 T's, and she explains why these 3 T's. And then she explains the difference between trans woman and travesti. And even it's very, I don't know if I'm overseeing things, but I kind of saw a reaction from you when I said about, when I was talking about travesti, because it's not good to hear what I'm saying. And it's not good to say what I'm saying. But because, and let me finish first what I was saying. She says that the principal thing that makes a travesti and a trans woman in Brazil is a racial division. So normally trans women are white women, even if they are not exactly from Brazil, or they can be from abroad, but if they are white, they are seen as trans women. And so, and they are respected and they are taken in a high level. Normally they are educated and everything. But in Brazil, Black women, they are not women. Because, and I'm saying that, take into consideration some sayings I've already heard from travestis, and very politicized ones.
Yeah.
So it is a feminine identity, right? And a Brazilian one, we should be proud of that. And what I'm saying is, these racialized Black bodies are called travesti, and they are socially taken to perform this identity. They are, because this identity, even if I wouldn't like to say that, in our social imaginary, it is an objectified identity. And whenever we hear the word travesti, Rita Von Hunt does this exercise in her video. When you say travesti, the thing that comes to your mind is the figure of a travesti that is produced by Brazilian TV shows, very very sensationalist ones. I don't know if that's the word.
Yeah, that's the word. Yeah.
And we see travestis as drugged people, poor people,
sex workers normally, a lot of times.
Sexual workers, never theorists, never people who think. And so
we just focus on the body, right?
We just focus on the body. And by the body, people are constructed. They are put in their correct place. And I wrote, I didn't have space. And as I told you, I really had this insight when I was writing the text. So I didn't have too much time to elaborate about it yet, but I could become a travesti and accept this identity in order to fight against this social construction, of course. But this is not how I see myself. Anyways, but I was being taken to be, I realized that I was being taken to see myself as a travesti, and until the moment that it's not only because of that, but it's because I don't see myself as a travesti, but I was being taken to. I kind of really felt the force pushing me to be one, because of the body signs that I perform and because of my color. So consequently, you are a travesti. In this context, in the Brazilian context, you are a travesti. So do you get what I mean?
Yes,
so assume your place. So assume yourself.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so yeah, I never thought about travesty being like very racial constructed, but it does. So I just learned something, like I just made some connection that I haven't made in the past, and it's also my area of research as well. Like I do think a lot about sexuality in Brazil and gender, and I have never thought about that. See
Me
how it's like
neither.
it's so naturalized. It's so naturalized that you don't even think about it.
It was with Rita Von Hunt, a pop. She's kind of a pop
figure. Yeah, she is.
Nowadays, yes. And it was with her that I learned. And when she said that, I really started wondering, why do we have such a difference, trans women and travesti?
Mm-hmm.
Aren't they the same? Why do we have this linguistic difference? And we do have, right?
Did you find any already published material about that? Like this making this relationship?
Michelle, I didn't go for it yet.
Okay.
But
because
yes.
I'm really interested now to see if we have something produced that discuss that. I'll try to do
so I see myself nowadays as a queer person and almost as a transvestite, because I'm always a transvestite.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, thank you for the answer. My next question is, you are on a phase of your research, like you're on a moment of your research that I think you have finished collecting. I don't like the word collecting data, but that's what I'm going to go for it now. Generating the data.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So do you have any conclusions or discussions or points that you already think like this is important, or this is a point that can be related to it can be related to the findings itself, but it also can be related to your views on ethnography and autoethnography, or your Black body as well, or your gendered body, or both at the same time, as we just discussed.
Yes, for the paper that I want to publish, and that I want to say that I'm not publishing it. I didn't publish it yet, not because of me, because I'm writing it with another person, but I've already finished my part. Otherwise, I would have already published it. So there is, I'm going to publish in a paper, works in paper platform. And I think I arrived at some conclusions with what I've already done so far. Because basically this is from where I depart, but also what I want to defend. And what is this idea? The one that we construct our bodies in and by language. And what I'm doing my work is, this is at least what I wanted since the beginning, to offer material, discussed with theory, of course, that proves or that defends this idea. But of course that I'm doing it I'm doing it linguistically, and because I'm a linguist, and I want to show how it happens linguistically, how we construct our bodies in and by language. And I think now I'm thinking about the text I wrote. I just don't have these exactly in mind, but there I show how we construct bodies using suffixes and using expressions, linguistic expressions. And I think this is what I want to defend. Now this is important to say, because the paper that I sent to you was not focused on vocatives, and this is what I want to focus now. So I want to
Okay.
to defend the idea I've just said, focusing on vocatives, which are the names that we use in order to call people. Yeah. So
yes.
yes, I think there are interesting data that I came up with now, because I do have some data analyzed in this paper, but as you could see, there is only data from my professional context, and now I had to analyze the other context that I'm analyzing, my familiar one, my friendly one, and so I could say that it is a translocal phenomena, and phenomena.
Yeah.
And well, I think I'll be able to defend this idea in the end of my thesis.
So yeah, you kind of answered my next question. That would be, what is the importance of language in your study? Because as we come from a background of critical language studies, we our axis, I would say, it is language, right? So I'm also like, I'm really interested in this axis of language and other categories and how it plays out in interactions in our everyday lives. About the vocatives, so you would say that the vocatives, they are like a piece of language that helps you to construct yourself and define who you are in interactions. That's what you mean?
I think they construct ourselves. This is what I want to defend, because when I've always been called by masculine vocatives all the time. Hey, you boy, you led, or I'm called by my name, which is a masculine one, Luiz. So my name is not Luisa, for example. So I've always been called by masculine vocatives. And what I want to defend, Michelle, in fact, is this. We construct our bodies in and by language, but I'm focusing on vocatives. We are not only constructed by this grammar aspect, but I should choose one, right? And then I chose for vocatives because when I arrived here in Belgium and I was called ma'am for the first time, I was wearing a mask, so people couldn't see my beard, and this is a body sign that I'm seeing that really indexes people to call me, that indexes a masculinity. And then when I was called ma'am for the first time, it reminded me of all the other feminine vocatives that people use to refer to me. But they are not referring to me, they are constructing me. If you take a pragmatic linguistic approach. And so I would say that we can be constructed by vocatives, and this is at least what happened to me, because when I paid attention to all the masculine, but also all the feminine vocatives that people used to refer to me, so I said to myself, I'm not a man. I cannot say I'm a man. Look at all these other people calling me using feminine vocatives to refer to me. I'm not a man anymore. I cannot say that. I cannot stand or this position anymore. And then I saw that that I was something else. But I'm saying this to say that regarding the my linguistic background in my research, what is the importance of language and everything, I would say, Michelle, I was thinking about this question because you presented some of them to me beforehand, and I was thinking that the relation is not that intrinsic, because you can make an autoethnography and do not give too much importance to language. And you can also and the other way around as well. So you can also make a linguistic study and it cannot be autoethnographic at all. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, I get.
What I'm trying to say is that there is no, in my opinion, there isn't an intrinsic link between,
in the studies, right? Like in research.
I would say it's because let come back to the ethnography. This broad field work until some time ago was seen as a science in which people represented the truth. So people, without the linguistic twist that we gave to it, that we gave the science, we didn't have a linguistic consciousness about what we were doing at that time. So what I mean is, you can do an autoethnography, maybe it's a little bit harder, but you can do an ethnography without a critical linguistic approach, right?
Yeah.
But so what I mean is, you can mislead yourself and think that you can do an autoethnography without giving importance to language. But I think that that's not how it should be, because of all the theoretical developments we already had regarding this. So I don't know if I answered you well, but
so what are you saying is in the development of the field, or this perspective of autoethnography studies, autoethnography specifically, it's really hard to conduct one without being reflexive about language.
Yes. Because when I first thought about your question, I wanted to answer like this. You can do in autoethnography without giving importance to language, but I've just realized that it's impossible. An autoethnography has to do with language, but at the same time, you can conduct an autoethnography and not give the importance that
I understand.
language
Yes.
Do you?
Yeah,
yes?
I get it. Yeah,
it was kind of hard.
It's really very clear. No, it's very. I think it's clear. It's very clear, actually. So thinking about
and
that,
what I mean, and sorry, Michelle, and what I mean is, you do not need to have a linguistic approach. You do not need to come from linguistics to conduct an autoethnography or to do a good ethnography, because, for example, here in Belgium, I'm in the anthropological department, as I've already said, and people, ethnographers, people from another area, they are not linguists as ourselves, and they do see language as something very important. And during the course that we gave together, me and my supervisors, sometimes I even had the impression that we were having a pragmatic course, but it was not. So you do not need to have, but at the same time you need to, because you need to have a pragmatic approach and background somehow. But you do not need specifically to come from linguistics to do an autoethnography and to have a good vision about language, right? It's not necessarily intrinsically related, but they have to be related, right? This is what I think I want to say.
Just in addendum, just like a plus. Here in the United States, linguistics is very specific to what we call hardcore linguistics in Brazil, which is like phonology, phonetics, semantics, things like this. So here, because our in Brazil, our training as linguists includes a lot of what would be here linguistic anthropology. So, but I think maybe adapting what you're saying in a sense, maybe the person doesn't need to have training in linguistic anthropology, because anthropology in general, they give you a background in certain
yes
things.
Also,
it's just an adaptation of what you're saying from what I see here. Let's do a final question. So you are on the field of ethnography and language, both of critical language studies. So what do you see in the future as possibilities for the fields? Thinking about what you see, what you read, what can be done, but also it can be just general about like how we connect academia and life in general. Like it can be about life as well, if you want to.
I think, Michelle, this is important to say. I was talking to Joana, our supervisor, and yes, this is what happened. We were invited to write a text for a book that is going to be published, and we were invited because it is a book about autoethnography. So this is already an index. A whole book about autoethnography. So we were invited to write for this book. And what my supervisor, Joana, said was that, oh yes, we are conducting an autoethnography because of, she said something like this, because the social and historical conditions are taking us to do so. So what I mean is autoethnography is also a phenomenon. No, I'm sorry, phenomenon, right? Or I always confuse
phenomenon.
Phenomenon, and phenomena is the plural form, right? So autoethnography is a phenomenon nowadays, and your interest in my work comes from this social thing that is happening in society, that is happening in society and in academia. And I have another friend who wants to talk to me. You know him, Lucas. He also wants to talk to me a little bit more about what I'm doing. So all this interest and the interest I had to do an autoethnography, all this is something social that has a direct connection to what we are, to the social and historical moment that we are living. So I would risk saying that if that's the case, and I believe so, I think that probably we are each day more having more works that in which we are going to interpolated to talk more about ourselves, in which we are going to talk more about our bodies, in which we are going to be more present in our works, because this is how science, this is how we are doing. Yes, this is how we are doing theory nowadays. This is how we are doing knowledge, right? And I would say that probably we tend to continue on this path, and I hope so, because for so long we've treated research and science as something distant from us, when it is
from our bodies.
And from our bodies and from our personal lives.
Just for certain bodies as well.
Yes.
Okay.
And hiding this, yes, and we spend too much time hiding this, because as you said, all these researches that we are referring to, they've always been about a specific body, but we hide right? We hide it. We said that they were not, but they are. And now we have, this is the moment in which we are putting our bodies, but we are good people. We assume that we are doing it. We assume that we're talking about our bodies and identities. We do not hide it, right? And I think that this is very important, and maybe this is where we are going to, which is a good path, I would say.
Yeah, that's a good catch. That's also something that I haven't thought about, but it connects very well to what my course that I was doing in Black Ethnographers. We discussed autoethnography as one of the topics, but I do think that the way that we were talking about, like how ethnography is related to ourselves and our process, you could see in the texts, is because she uses a lot of recent literature and non-canon in a sense. So you can see these this flow towards what you're saying. That's interesting to think, like, to do the connection.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to I think we can reach an end now. Thanks a lot to agreeing and to be a guest in this special podcast session. And I loved talking to you. It was really good. It's been a while since we talked. And I just want to say that you are a special person. And I love you.
Me too. You are very special for me. I just think that we should talk more.
We will.
And Michelle, you make part of my story and of my life. And it's a pity that we are too distant. We should be more together, I think, because I do love you as well.
Thank you for being here with me.
Yeah,
that's it for today. Thank you.